There it is.
All right. Welcome, everybody. What's up? It's Dr. Paul with the Comic Book Conservator's live show, episode 58. My regular co-host with me once again. We are thrilled to bring you the show and happy to see everybody in the chat.
Hey.
Welcome,
Hey,
Phil.
everybody.
Welcome, Larry. How are you guys?
Good. Good to be home. I've got my daughter visiting with me this week for a week,
Oh,
and I'm
so
super
nice.
happy.
Yeah.
So I asked her if she wanted to be part of the show, and she reluctantly declined.
Yeah. Well, does she watch even? If she watches, she's ahead of my loved ones.
No, she doesn't. She thinks we're all a bunch of nerds, and she's
Yeah.
not incorrect.
Right.
Yeah. We could be doing Dungeons and Dragons or Pokemon, but we do comic books here. That's
yeah,
what we do.
I do some of that other stuff too. I was actually just talking to a friend of mine from high school. He is a full-time dungeon master.
Ooh,
That's his profession.
I don't know what that means, but that sounds cool.
Shout out to DM Bob Yo. That's his
nice.
handle. And yeah, I'm going to see him this summer, and I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, so Larry, weird to see you in the same location 2 weeks in a row. It happens so infrequently, man.
I know. I'm off for a month. I'm so happy. It's just
feel great.
Nice.
Oh, it does. I am just ecstatic. Just taking the pressure off. So yeah, I'm able to do some stuff at home now. I've got a huge stack of Planet comics that I need to get through. I think I've got like 20 of them here that need work of various states.
Wow.
I'm racing up that CGC registry really quick.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Hey.
Yeah. You must have at least half the issues now, yeah?
No, actually I don't. I have 28%.
28%. Oh, I guess it's a much longer run than All Star.
Yeah, it's 73. It's 73 books.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got quite a bit. I've got some that they need to be worked on to submitted, and then I'm still trying to go after my Rivet books. So Phil sent me a link to one the other day, but
sorry, I've done that for you, and I'm happy to be that guy, being like, hey, I mean, I'm not pressuring you or anything.
And it was number 2, and it was a really, really good price. But it was just like he wanted either Zelle or he wanted a very specific payment, and so I couldn't put it on a card. So he didn't do PayPal. So otherwise, I probably would have pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah. Wow. Frankly, I don't really understand people that only do business that way. It really. I understand you're saving a tiny bit of friction on the exchange, but that tiny bit of friction gives you a lot of legitimacy and gives both entities a lot of protection.
Yeah.
Well worth it to me. I definitely balk at people that are F&F only. Unless I know them very well. And even then, it's like, why not pay a couple % to protect both of us? Right? I don't know.
Yeah, when you see the Facebook ads and things like that, it's really hard, especially when it's a lot of money. And I can't. Some of these things, I don't know who you are.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The only one I've dealt with, actually, Phil sent it to me, was the Alley Collect guy.
Yeah,
and, I have no problem. He's in San Francisco. He's almost local, so I pay stuff. He sends me the books. I get them like day after.
Well, I think Alley, if I'm not mistaken, is many of those books are consignments.
Really?
Yeah.
Coming from wherever not all of them, but many of them.
Many.
I've got a couple from there, including the one that you guys know about just recently. A Bernie Wrightson signed House of Secrets 92, which I have in. It's a beautiful raw book. Needs some work. I'm looking forward to getting my grubby mitts on it. They won't be grubby when they get on it. They'll be clean and dry. But Yeah, that's a person you can, but even that, it is consignment. So you could trust him to the end of the earth. And
sure,
the consigner could be somebody even, I'll make a long story short because this is a book about this is a show about comic book conservation. But I know a guy that has a car dealership. He's had a car dealership for 30 years. And back in the Great Recession, that big giant crash, this must have been 09, maybe 2010, this event happened. He had a person that he had been buying and selling cars from at that point for 15 years. So much so that he bought and sold cars all the time. They traded hands constantly. They did things on a handshake. This guy had always been rock solid. Often he would say, hey, I'm going to send you these 10 cars. Here's the 10 titles. Wire me the money. Pick up the cars later, or I'll give you the titles later, whatever. This had been going on for decades. And that person ended up under a lot of financial stress during the crisis and stiffed him to the point that it drove his successful business completely under.
Well,
Lost everything because he trusted somebody that had been completely trustworthy for decades.
Well, that's we had a comic book restoration specialist that went through that too, and he was completely trustworthy. Everybody trusted him, and then he went around the bend.
That's why I'm saying, like, just pay the 2% and give me the. I don't want the friends and family. I don't care if you are friend or family. That's my opinion on it generally. And now it doesn't mean I'll never do it. Basically, I'll only do it if it's a small enough risk that I'm willing to just have a complete loss on it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, when we're talking 4-figure books, I have trouble with that.
Yeah, too much risk. There we go. Let everybody know where they can find you, Captain.
You can find me at flyinglcomics.com, but the easiest place to find me is on Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook in our wonderful Facebook group.
Yeah, the comic book conservation community.
It's grown quite big now. We have 515 people as of today.
Fun. So very collaborative. Check it out if you haven't yet.
A lot of good information.
Say hi to everybody. Tell them where you're at and how they can find you.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is Phil. As always, coming to you live from the border of Brooklyn and Queens here in New York City. You can find me on Instagram at Phantom Restoration or at this lovely website just beneath my name here. As always, drowning in comics, have a ton of projects, have a lot of big books I'm going to be happy to complete. In the very near future, have a few other changes that are going to be happening in the very near future. And, I love comic books. I love doing this with you guys on Sunday, and I'm happy to be here to talk comics, nerd out, and, not really escape my main gig, too, because it's a hobby. So it's just totally enthralled. My girlfriend didn't know what she was getting into.
As long as she sticks by you, that's all that matters.
That is. I'm not outing anybody because I see that they actually posted this on social media, but I heard you have a Flash #1 on its way to you for evaluation.
Ooh.
I do. Between us, I have another one that has other work that needs to be completed. So not to whatever, but it's kind of crazy that I'll have two Flash ones in house.
That's great. That's a testament to your work.
What a book!
Yeah. It's kind of surreal just saying it because I'm like, oh yeah, that's. I saw the post and I was like, that is a cool book. And I was like, oh yeah, it's good. I'm looking at the package it's in. I haven't even opened yet, so it's like it is.
It's perfectly safe inside.
Well, welcome again to both of you. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for everybody that's joining live. Looks like we've got already a lively crew. Before we get started, I want to say, if you are watching this live and it is ad-free, you have 3 gentlemen to thank. AG,
yes, we do.
Don Carter, and Salesboy Comics. They are sponsoring this show live. You see it ad-free. If you're watching it on Rewind, you may have to watch the ads unless you have YouTube Premium. But them's the breaks.
Thanks, guys.
We do this for free, and they do that for you. So give them a big thank you, and they have our appreciation for sure. We'll see if anybody steps up to sponsor next week's show. And with that, we'll roll into our shout outs. And my buddy Mike Hugo Danner says, sad news, writer Peter David passed away at age
I saw that
68.
today.
Man, Peter David is one of my favorite writers. I really thought that his Hulk was amazing. I really liked Peter David on almost everything he did, actually. What do you guys think?
Rest in peace. Yeah,
Absolutely.
He wasn't that old. Was he 68? I think.
That's what Mike says.
Yeah.
You're almost there, Larry.
Well, thank you.
I'm 15 years away, but you're half that distance from 68 right now. So take good care of yourself, man.
Closing the distance on the goal.
Yeah. I would like to just say, rather than be sad, let's just do a celebration of life for Peter David.
Yep. Celebrate his work.
Yeah, absolutely stunning writer. Really talented fellow. I'd never met him in person, so can't say anything beyond his body of work, but I really enjoyed it. Welcome to Ben Stewart, Don Carter, thanks again, Rick Nestor, Jason, the Archivist Adrift, Vulu, Lost in Wallace, the Professor, Peter Alachi. Been trying to catch up on all of his videos. He's been prolific lately.
Yeah, I can't catch up on Peter. He keeps cranking them out. I'm trying to watch him.
Amazing stuff too. It's always quality over quantity. JCP, welcome. Plucked my last nerve. Always great to see you in the chat. Morris Devereaux, welcome to our Canadian friend Gorilla Monkey 3000. Morris points out that some of this is not just to avoid the 2 or 3%, but also to avoid paying taxes. I have the same feeling about that, Morris. If we're real businessmen, we pay real taxes. That's how I feel about it. But I understand that, yes, it is a tax dodge. Tommy Piffington, welcome. All books are down except Absolute Batman. That may be true in the new book aisle, but we're dealing mostly here with older books, and almost all Golden Age books are up, actually. So it's a good time to be a holder of Golden Age equity.
That's what we specialize in.
Starman, it's good to see you here. I haven't seen you in a couple shows. Glad to have you here with us today. And with that, let's jump into our sort of pseudo market report, our conserved comic book market report. This is a fun one. How many times have we seen this book?
I don't recognize this book.
No, yeah. Second appearance of Wolverine, and cool cover.
There's people that will argue that with you. 180 was a cameo.
It's fine. It's fine. I like to just say first full and first cover. I mean, honestly, it's the cover, it's the battle that sells it. What do we care is exact. I actually, one thing, 180 used to be able to pick up for pennies, and it's really come a long way, partially because this book appreciated so much.
A guy offered me one for $50, a 180, and I said, "Oh, that's not worth anything."
I always find the argument, it sounds suspiciously like people are trying to make the argument that 180 should be worth more, even though, like, if you were to ask them, like, does it make sense because of the cover, they would say no. So it's like a weird, like, it doesn't make any. It's a logical fallacy. It doesn't make any sense.
It's like X-Men Annual 14 first Gambit. He's got 20 panels with dialogue, but they won't call it that.
Yeah. Well, in both cases, the second appearance is just the better book.
Exactly.
And that's why it's worth more.
exactly.
It's more desirable because
okay.
it's a better book and more people want it, and because more people want it, it's worth more money. It's pretty simple market
I'm
dynamics,
sad.
actually.
I don't have this book anymore. I got it when it was new,
Mm,
and I sold it to somebody for probably $5.
mm.
Shortly thereafter, and
You
who
did a
who
good job.
knew? And
That was a
yeah,
huge appreciation for your 25 cents, bro. Killed it.
yeah, it really
I had
is.
a-
Hopefully you
I had
put
my
that $5
copy.
in the market.
Probably.
I had
not.
a mid grade, probably like a 4 or 5 that I paid $275 for when I was 12, or right around 12 years old, and I think I sold it like maybe a decade later for like 1,000, which was like pretty decent.
Yeah, you did all right.
Would've been
My
nice to buy it off
personal
the stands, though.
copy is still raw. It is it's around a 6. It's
Oh,
similar
good.
condition to this one, actually, but it's universal. Came to me actually with some cleanable defects, and so I cleaned and pressed it, and presents pretty well, actually.
Nice.
You might say it was a 7, but I think it's got just on the bottom right, that corner has a color breaking crease. It doesn't really detract much at arm's length. It looks like a really high grade book, but it's not really. But I'm happy with it. I mean, I'm very happy to own this book. Yeah, I'm happy to own this book. I'm happy to have this in my collection. I was a huge Claremont X-Men fan, and obviously Wolverine was one of his favorite characters because he really made him a badass. So I'm happy to have this book. Yeah. Anyway, this book sold 4 days ago, I believe.
Okay.
And
4 days ago?
we're going to talk about it. So Hulk 181. We'll just use first full appearance and first cover.
4 days. That's
19,000 copies graded.
Jesus.
Yeah, 19,000 copies. And remember, mine's raw. Phil's is probably still raw, right? There's a lot of copies of this book floating around. Remarkable that it's worth as much as it is. It tells you how much demand there is. And it tells you, again, speaking to the legacy of Chris Claremont's, however long it was, 15 years on X-Men.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Next to Spider-Man and Batman, I think Wolverine's the most popular superhero. So this is, even though it's a Bronze Age book, this isn't surprising to me.
Yeah,
and the Bronze Age kids would probably argue that with you and say Wolverine's more important than Spider-Man.
Oh, so, I mean, you know what? You could make the art. Well, it's tough, but in the original art space, Wolverine gets it crazy premium, but Spider-Man gets a premium too. So you're kind of just, it's like actually comparing apples and apples. Yeah.
They can, depending on the writing and the story arcs and what's going on in the theater.
They're both tier 1.
They can all swap
There's
places.
No question about that. Yeah,
absolutely.
But this is for what we look at. Yeah, this is crazy. 19,000 all grades. This is a far cry from us normally looking at books, and it's like 34 total graded copies.
Yeah, I know. This is crazy.
So median grade on these is 7.0. Only 41 conserved. So when one sells, it's nice to take a look at it. November of 1974. I was 2.5. Larry actually picked it up at the newsstand for $0.25.
Yeah, I did.
Lots of these sell every month, so we don't have to speculate about the value. We have lots of data. Here are the last nearly 20 years of data for publicly traded copies at 6.5, courtesy of Go Collect. So 6.5 is top 61% of the census. You see there the 1 year average is 3149. Go Collect algorithm gives us a fair market value of 3,100. I will note that the value does seem to be climbing. The 90-day average is slightly higher than the 1 year average, and the 30-day average is above the 90-day average. So this is a book possibly in recovery finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's books like this that could finally lead the Bronze Age books out of the doldrums. If you look at the price appreciation graph on the left, you'll see that the highest price ever paid for a Hulk 181 in 6.5 is, I think this is price adjusted to present dollar values, but 9,150. So that would have been the value approximately of the raw book that I have at its peak. And of course, it's been slashed dramatically. It's worth 1/3 of what it was worth at that peak. That said, like I said, maybe this is the kind of book, if you ask me, what book is going to lead Bronze Age books out of the doldrums? This is the kind of book that could certainly get it done.
It's cool to see that graph because it really does look like the book now, if it is like you just said, kind of in recovery mode, it's back in its natural increase. If you were to remove this kind of artificial inflated period, it's just kind of right back on track to where it was, which
it's
is
resumed.
Yep.
Just like you would if you're looking at a stock chart. It's resumed its upward trend, right? Absolutely. So I use 3,100 because that's what the algorithm said. And unless I have a really good reason to use another number, that's what I use. Here's the book. So why is it conserved? Guys, we're seeing a lot of books that I do not believe were intentionally conserved. They are the result of somebody getting overboard with their cleaning and pressing generally.
I've been seeing that.
Sending it in, fingers crossed for a blue label. A few years back, that would have been a restored label, but CGC is now, and I believe correctly so, putting them in the conserve category.
Yeah.
So what do I mean by that? Here we have the issue. The grade date was July of 2023. Conserved. Okay. Conservation includes cover cleaned, interior lightened. There it is.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Or
one
really
of the
rather
co-hosts of the show.
So as someone who, I mean, it's really my job to know these things. There's that, grading, there's a real nuance to it. And even like little things like what I'm about to just say, like it's easy to overthink and how vernacular is. What I'm getting at is this is specifically cover cleaned and interior lightened. It doesn't say cover cleaned, interior cleaned. So that's to say that there's a distinction between interior cleaning and interior lightening, but they both are acceptable in a conserved grade. So that means, what's the difference? What's the difference between the interior clean and interior lightened? And just after thinking about it, it seemed to me that the most obvious answer should be that the interior just wasn't deacidified or cleaned. It was maybe just photo bleached or something like that. Would that be?
I would say it was probably blue light treatment, lightened that way. Okay. Because if you do it sloppy, it'll lighten wrong.
I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to say that I actually think it's just there's been an intervention and they're not 100% sure what happened. They grade the book that's in front of them and it doesn't look right, and they use this. Whether it was with water or LEDs, they don't know. And it very well could have been water. I'm going to lean toward, guys, on this one, I'm going to lean toward a poorly performed hop.
Okay. That's what I was thinking.
That's a possibility.
Here are some of my clues. Grader notes include staple rust with stain into centerfold. Now, that's just a thing that may have nothing to do with a hop. Staple detached top of spine. That could be a poor hop job, especially when you note that the last line says spine stress lines and it's clearly a cleaned and pressed book. Why did they leave stress lines?
I mean, maybe even though they didn't break color, they still just, the fibers were still kind of broken enough where they were still going to stay.
Or somebody with a fat thumb did it.
Is it me, or does it, like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but to me it would seem that it may be wrong to say that it was a bad hop, because in some ways it was a successful hop because they helped mitigate the rust stains, right? It just isn't a preferred label. So like the book was improved and it was done well, right? But it wasn't, it didn't achieve the desired end goal if that would be a universal label here. Not to be a stickler, but just to,
no, fair enough. I think, look, whoever owns the book. Whatever they want to do to it is their right. We've said many times, we're not gatekeepers. I do think that our personal style is to advocate for a light touch, and a light touch means if you are doing a hop, it's not an aggressive one. And for me personally, if I'm doing a hop and I end up with a conserved grade, I feel that I've failed on that.
I can see where you're coming from.
To be fair to your point, that's just my personal standard. The person who did this book, that's their book, and well, it's about to be. Well, it just changed hands, so it's not their book anymore, but it was their book, right? Yeah.
Well, for a quick lesson to our audience at home is when you're getting ready to submit a book, and if you've done hop treatments and things like that, where you want to compare your interior pages, the way CGC does it, I got a nice book here in front of me. They will take and do this. They turn the page in like
Let me
this.
highlight you, Larry, so you can.
Yeah, that's good. So they turn the page like this, and if this, let me turn this way. If this does not match that, or there's a slight color difference, they're going to flag it as lightened. So if you're doing this, do this yourself. Just take your interior. You can even take your cover and compare everything. If everything looks the same, then you've done a good job, proper job of cleaning. But if you have one page that's distinctly lighter than the next one, it's going to get red flagged. So and I've got that direct straight from Matt Nelson to my ears. So
and your page one, your first wrap, might be darker than the interior wraps.
Yeah,
because it's a little closer to oxygen in just normal storage, etc. If it's lighter than the rest of the pages, that's not natural, and that's a red flag for them. Yeah, great.
You can't. Yeah, but you can't over clean these books, and
absolutely,
that's something that Matt Nelson mentioned to me directly. Once you cross that red line, there's no going back. So,
Larry, you made a really good point right there. I think that I was kind of forgetting when I initially brought that up, and that is that to say that it's possible that CGC makes the distinction between interior clean and interior lightened when they see an interior that looks more white than it would from originally being printed. That's what that is describing. It's not. Okay.
If it's looks better than when it came off the press.
Well, that's a given.
That's an automatic given. And
but it's a tell if it just is not in line with the rest of the pages. And again, that doesn't mean exactly the same. The outer wrap can be a bit darker than the centerfold. But if it's the other way around, then for sure there's been some sort of intervention, or the book was stored open, or some other very bizarre thing.
It'll automatically go to conserved.
And also, if
it looks better than the way it came off the press.
Yeah. And this is also just under the practices that we're talking about here, which would be like the bled and the hot method and stuff. That's not to say that there aren't other methods that people can use to clean covers that would get a purple restored label too. It's just not, it's just not something that really is seen so prevalently nowadays. It's probably seen more on books that were restored in like the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah. Gorilla Monkey 3K says rusty staples might be I think he says from an exposure to too many humid environments, speaking from experience, meaning Gorilla Monkey 3K is saying hop with too much humidity can actually give you rusty staples. Could also be the environment, but great point. I'm looking at the book here. One thing I don't see is a lot of cover shrinkage, which means which is another telltale sign of kind of an overdone hop. So I don't think this was a dramatically overdone or botched job, right? I think it's
the prior presence of the rust migration is what made it apparent that it had to have been cleaned. That was the tell here. And that's the only reason I said before. And just to be clear, I'm
great point.
On your side too, in terms of the principles of wanting to do it in less is more. And that's why we go for the universal label. But in this point here, I was like, well, I mean, if you have a book that has rust migration, it's a win to get rid of the rust migration in a sense. Yeah. It's just not a technical win from the label perspective.
I'll say this too, like the book is a nice book.
Oh no, it presents really well.
Yeah, it really does.
Right. Back cover. Again, I don't see cover shrinkage, not dramatic. No. I think this would be higher grade were it not for the top detached staple, right?
Yeah.
Well, the visible rust on that top staple.
That's really all you see. There's no like big crease that you can point to, or really any.
I personally really don't like. I mean, I'm kind of big on structural integrity, so I really don't like detached staples. But this book is a really nice looking book, and I think, what is it? It's at least, I don't know. This is a 7.5 if the staple's not detached, I think.
Yeah, I would say so.
Well, it's already conserved too. I mean, you could argue too that maybe
you might as well have fixed the staple.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to get into that here, maybe you could get that half point, full point bump. Since, as you initially said, we see a high degree of books that seem suspiciously like they ended up in conserved labels, but they weren't initially meant to. So now that this is here, the next buyer perhaps can say, you know what, I'll get a little more work done maybe and try to get this grade bumped up. That could be something that could be done.
Absolutely. Part of my point. Guesses. Hammered 4 days ago on eBay. I will say
3,100.
Actually, just a little more information to inform guesses. This was fixed price on eBay, and the Go Collect fair market value 3,100, though the book is trending up in the last 30 to 90 days. So use those data to inform your guesses here.
3,100 in Universal, correct?
Yes.
Correct, Mundo. Okay. But as I said, trending up.
1,800. Oh. That's my call.
18 honey. All right. A little over 50%.
Yep. I'm gonna go 2350.
Okay. 2350.
I'm always conservative.
I think we may actually already have Lostons at 2,200. Pluck My Last Nerve's gonna get under you there, Larry, at 1,650. I think maybe earlier we had somebody kind of doing it was Lost and just speculating about what prices, where they might be. Let's say, welcome to Collecting Chaos. I can't believe it just notified me. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe YouTube notified.
Yeah, his YouTube notifications.
KK of the show going live. Sales Boys at 2,600. Keep it moist, man. Collecting Cast 1,700. Professor Peter Alachi's coming in at 2.5 thousand.
Jason's coming in with the Canadian prices.
2238. Vulu's at 1,900. JCP at 2,400. Gorilla Monkey 3K at 2,800. Is that what that means with the $sign afterward?
No.
That's supposed to be Canadian?
No. It's just every time I see an eBay price and they cross-check it over to U.S. dollars, it's always a weird change. Yeah. And
I see. I see your reference. Yeah. We actually have a lot of Canadians that watch the show. So let's see. Jason is at 21, 51, 17. Rick Nestor's at 24.50. You guys both are already in, right?
Yeah, I'm in at 18.
Yep.
What is Gorilla Monkey is High Man at 28?
Wow.
26.
So
Sales Boy is at 26. Sales
Yep.
Boy's
Sales Boy's got it.
Are you
You know
cheating?
what I think really helped it?
Are you cheating,
the-
Sales Boy?
The white pages. I think
He's won 3 times in a row.
that's a little sus, Sales Boy. A little suspicious. A little suspicious. If you're gonna, I mean, you got to throw out like a random one, you know.
Yeah, that's like winning the lottery 2 weeks in a row, you know.
84%.
That's good.
You know, it's great. I'll put a few sort of little caveats on this. Again, the price of Universal is climbing, so maybe maybe Go Collect needs to catch up on the price. Also, we looked at this particular conserve book and we said, look, you're already in a conserve label. That top staple detachment is what's holding you back. You crack this, you repair that with some Japanese paper, you resub it. I think the book's 7.5.
It's already conserved.
And it's already a conserved book. So I think this one had a lot going for it to realize a high percent value of Universal. Nevertheless, man, only a 15% discount off of Universal pricing is phenomenal for any book, let alone a book as numerous as this one in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Sales Boy feels picked on.
Oh. We can be mean sometimes, but we're human. So
Yeah.
hold it against us.
Gorilla Monkey says, I'm French Canadian this dollar after. Is there like a C with a line through it for Canadian dollars? I'm being like serious. I don't actually know, because you don't use the dollar symbol technically is like a U. Well, I guess the dollar symbol with 2 lines is technically a US dollar, very specifically. It's literally an S with a U through it is the original way that you come up with the dollar sign, right?
We'll have to ask our Canadian friends in the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there it is. What do you guys think of that?
That's cool.
I'm
fun,
impressed.
right?
So.
Yeah, I'm not going to go chase one of those. I think it's had its time. Yeah, it's a cool book. There's so many of them out there, though. If you want one, it's just a credit card away. I like stuff that's quite a bit rarer. There's low on the population list. There's not much to compare it to. Those type of things. There is so much. They've graded so many of these books. There's so many things they can pull and compare to and set a grade standard. It's like buying a custom house versus a cookie cutter house. It's not going to go up in value because your neighbor's house is identical to it.
Oh, absolutely. That said, just because of the place it has for me and my fandom, like I said, I'm happy to have a copy. I wouldn't want to not have a copy of it, just personally, because
it's something
I love those books so much.
They're great books. I love the writing was the best part for me. You focus on the good writing and the writings. I haven't really picked up any of the newer books because I'm just not interested. I like the art, so I look at the art of these books that we work on that we can serve. That's more important to me, the artist. So
absolutely.
But yeah, it's a good book. I like my Golden Age though.
Yeah, me too. I mean, people know that I'm generally not buying books from this era, but some of the ones that I have, I really do cherish because they were, growing up without a lot of resources, and I did buy. Well, my brother technically bought off the rack the Wolverine limited series #1, and reading that Claremont Miller collaboration, and just kind of, I mean, that's where it was for us. And at the time, honestly, a Hulk 181 seemed like something you couldn't accomplish, right? A dream, something you would never own. So yeah, for me, that's a book that I'm very happy to have. But as you say, like it'd be hard to say I would never let it go, because frankly, if I did, I wouldn't be concerned about it, whether or not I could find another one, as you say, right?
No.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas, some of my all-star issues, if I let it go, it'll be
You may
years
wait.
before I find another one. And if I'm actually trying to get one in high grade, it may be even a decade or longer before I find
Yeah,
one.
I was just going to say
So,
that if you're looking for, it could be a decade.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been. Yeah, go ahead.
Speaking of collections and registry, for any of you out there that are interested in CGC registry, I believe the deadline for entry for books is the end of this month. I think June 1st is they lock the registry. So if you have any books that you intend to get them in if you want them counted for this year's points.
Yeah.
Nice. I think that a book like that, at least for me, and it's easier for me to say too as a guy that's like 34 years old, but like the more time has gone on for me as a collector of like 20 years, and I see a book like Hulk 181, and it's like that book's 50 years old now, and I'm like, that book really is closer. It's only 10 years away from Spider-Man 1, really, right about. So like that is like the more time that goes on, the cooler that book really gets, because it is still the first Wolverine. It's only going to go in that direction despite the plentiful amount that are out there. So that is
Well, I can safely tell you, I've been waiting for over a decade to upgrade this book. Now, this is a 9.0. And it's a very pricey book. It's nothing special about this book other than it's my birthday book.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this is my birthday book, the May 1965. I'm an old guy, but I've been trying to upgrade this book to like a 9.2 or a 9.4 or anything above it. They just flat out don't exist. They come out maybe once a decade. So I've been waiting over 10 years to upgrade this book.
Wow.
You're popular.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
while we're on you, Larry, as a segue to our second segment, did you want to show off a pickup?
Oh, you mean this?
Oh, I do mean that.
So everybody, this is my first timely book, Marvel Mystery Comics. I've been wanting one of these since I was a kid, and they were just so outrageously priced, and so I bit down hard and I got this from Heritage. So I was really happy to win this. So now I got one.
Congratulations!
So, I'm happy about that. Too. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I like it. I looked at it. It's got bad guys in the front. It's got Toro and the Human Torch, and this is a cool book. I was happy to pick it up. So this is going to my PC. You guys won't find it on eBay. Sorry.
So we've from time to time we talk about timelies, and I've been saying they're just too much money. I feel like I can get better value in DC books, or frankly almost any other publisher from the golden age. And I do think it's that those rabid collectors, Larry, that are about our age, that were huge Marvel zombies in the 70s and 80s, and now have disposable income and want to reach a generation further back. And but remember when we were kids, when Marvel Comics 1 rivaled Action 1 in terms of market value.
Yeah, they're about there neck and neck. Yeah,
and now of course that's no longer
pretty close too.
What's that?
The first Tarzan was pretty close to those prices too.
Is that true? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I can't think of the issue, like what it is.
It's one of those.
It's not like 4-color 1, but it's one of those like weird titles. That's the technical first. I want to say, unless I'm like having a brain aneurysm and I'm just like having a revision.
That's funny. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm gonna have to go back through my old Overstreets. I was actually reading old Overstreets recently as research for our new book.
Good.
Shelby's been hard at work, and I've been trying to keep up with him. He's such a prolific writer and such a great writer. I've just been trying to keep up, but if you like this, I think you're really going to love what we have on tap, and it's in the works. And yeah, I was reading Old Overstreets as research for that recently. Yes, pretty much all the old Timelies have been reprinted JCP. That's where I read them.
Yeah.
And not to beat a dead horse, but that's another thing I've said is they're almost unreadable.
A lot of them. Yeah. The covers are the best parts, really.
The covers, just stick with the covers. You won't be disappointed.
The splashes, honestly, oftentimes the splashes were almost just as good.
Well, I can see that
too. But,
yeah.
The story.
Stories are difficult to read for me.
For me, it was just a personal grail.
Absolutely. No. I'm not trying to take anything away. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, I like Schomburg, and this is a Schomburg book, and everything I wanted was right in this book. Well, I think it could have been better to be Captain America on the cover. No, that's okay.
One of the reasons, too, I think that is incredible. It's even unbelievable that these things that were sold for 10 cents, that were just rushed off the press to get them printed, had as high quality draftsmanship from the artist.
Yeah.
It's like you can't expect the stories to be unbelievable, too. That didn't come for a couple decades later, but I mean, even still for the high quality that were there.
I mean, okay, Phil, that said, yes, but there was some incredible storytelling during that era as well.
Yeah.
Just not as much as other eras. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think that the true golden age, especially pre-war Superman and Batman, are quite good. For me, reading those are much better stories than, not to pick on them, but the early Timely.
Yeah.
And, again, not for nothing, not even sticking in that genre, but going over to like slapstick type stuff, like the Jack Cole on Plastic Man, literal genius writing, stuff that holds up today very well. As a matter of fact, puts most of the writing today still to shame, right? So, I'm not trying to hold too high a bar. 300 Bod Welcome says, just read Teen Titans 1 recently and it was so bad. Okay, I'm assuming you mean the Silver Age Teen Titans 1. If that is in fact what you mean, these things come in waves, and for me, the Golden Age DC, pretty good writing and very good art. The Silver Age stuff, it's difficult to get through a lot of it. Not all of it. There was some better stuff, but all right. Let's kick off our second segment. Normally I preview everything at the beginning of the show. I guess I didn't do that, but we do have a second segment. Phil's prepared it for us, and I'm excited about it because I actually have no idea what we're going to see.
Maybe I hit some naughty pictures in there because I knew that you wanted to be able to look it over first. Hey, everyone, we could get a spike in viewership. We could get a spike in viewership. Mom will never like again, but maybe we'll pick up some more viewers.
We'll be blocked next week on YouTube.
All right, let me see if this works. Right, so if I do this,
there you go.
Zing, bazing, hey.
Let me have in hand.
Nice. Can I just use this moment to say, hey, everyone, we really appreciate you watching this live, or if you're watching it later. And
absolutely,
we don't do it often, but if you could give this a thumbs up, hey, we'd really appreciate it because it helps the algorithm and helps other people see the video and it gets out there. And we appreciate the support. So on that note, onto this book, Amazing Spider-Man 14 for tape removal, dry cleaning, and press. And if you follow me on Instagram, I've already posted this book with like a little bit of a write-up and description and some photos, but this is just a slightly more in-depth talk about this book.
Yeah, I remember this. Well, looking forward to it.
So, hey, why do we care about this book? Why does it matter? And this is one of those things where, man, if you look back and you see like the Rogue Gallery and the first a couple dozen issues of Spider-Man, it's like, oh my God, they were on a roll. It was unbelievable. The amount of characters that held up. And if you look at other titles, and you see the road, the gallery of villains, and they're so awkward comparatively. You're like, oh, they're not as good as the Green Goblin or the Vulture or Sandman, and all these classic characters, Dr. Octopus. So this is the very first, for those that don't know, Green Goblin.
Yeah.
Not that they kind of took it for granted, but it is kind of crazy how you see there's a good chunk of the front cover that they didn't even devote to the Green Goblin. They were like, hey, by the way, the Hulk's going to make a quick appearance in this, because this also was so early. This is the very first time Spider-Man and Hulk ever meet in the Marvel comic universe, which is kind of...
The evil enforcers are in there too, You gotta give them credit.
The enforcers.
Fine. Sorry, that was my jadedness sometimes. That's not fair to the enforcers.
Collecting Chaos, thank you so much for the super chat.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Next episode's on KK.
Thank you.
Just to mirror that and piggyback on it a little bit, this is why so many people are really into the first, 36 issues with Steve Ditko in the collaboration with Stan Lee, and just the quirkiness of the art and the uniqueness and the just raw creativity that was jumping off the pages during this period is really, to my thinking, never been recreated. I think one of the rivals, funny enough, is actually the Silver Age Flash. Carmine Infantino over there was teamed up with, I know it was edited by Julie Schwartz. I'm not sure who the writer was, but if you look at that, the entire Flash Rogues Gallery of any import was dumped on us in a 2-year period in Flash Comics in the Silver Age. I don't think they're quite as good as Spider-Man's, but there's a lot of them, and they've been around a long time. And you got Captain Boomerang and some really goofy shit, which I don't think holds up quite as well. But I think in the DC world, to me, Flash has got the second best Rogues Gallery after Batman, and it was they were pretty much all created during that couple-year period in the Silver Age. So that's a parallel for me. But absolutely, I think this is hands down the best Rogues Gallery development in all of comics, in terms of just the first 2 years or 3 years, I guess, closer to 3 years.
Yeah. I think you could argue maybe Batman has the best over the course of time, but Spider-Man...
Yeah, but not in any... It's not concentrated, right? We cherry-picked the best villains from 80 years of publication.
Statistically, Spider-Man's an anomaly where it's like, how did they... really every one of the villains for the first 40 issues, none of them were stinkers. They were all they all came back. They were all well received and reviewed. So yeah, it is...
Yeah.
It's weird objectively to think of a Green Goblin before knowing he would be popular, being like, how is the Green Goblin gonna work? But also we have to remember, this is a guy dressing up as a spider, being a Spider-Man, so Green Goblin kind of fits right in that person.
No, it actually and again, the creativity that here is incredible. A friend of mine sent me ASM 1 through 6 recently just to do a little work on, and I was just holding them going first appearance. What? It's insane. It really is quite a creative output. Never been matched, in my opinion.
I'm looking at this book. I see the tape on the spine and elsewhere. What a great project book! I mean, it's even autographed.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Presumably by the person that put the tape on there, Claire. And Claire was like, "But I'm protecting it. Look, I want this to last." So, the crazier thing about this.
You guys know the answer to this?
Oh no, I'm all familiar. I called that book.
The Angry Girlfriend. Oh yeah, I remember that book too.
Yep.
That's an SM-14.
I'm back. Yep.
Yeah.
It's ASM 14, yep. What would have been probably like a 9.0.
Yeah, that wasn't it. That wasn't it. Yeah, they graded that. They had to label it "Angry Girlfriend Book" or something.
I feel like they did have some.
Mhm.
I mean, it's become notorious. But
Yeah.
so anyway, so this is the Clay Jones copy, everyone, as you can clearly see by the
There you
pen
go, baby.
that's embedded into the front cover here. That really safely isn't really being removed. That's
No.
gonna be sticking there. So, but what I was going to say was, we're so familiar seeing tape on the spine here, but yeah, and this one, lucky
tape
enough,
on the
also
outer
had a
edge,
strip
yeah.
on that whole outer edge. And if you know anything about these early Marvels, some people would look at this once and say, "I'm not trying to remove that tape. Get out of here!" Like,
I'm out. Yeah.
yeah, it's you have more luck removing tape, generally speaking, on like golden age books that don't have forgive my wordage here, Paul. What the two different types of tape you could say, like pre 1960?
It's usually 61 is kind of when sort of quote unquote modern tape is introduced, and it takes a few years to catch on in the market in terms of taking over. By mid to late 60s, so it uses an acetate adhesive. By mid to late 60s, the old tapes are pretty much gone from the marketplace. So my guess is this is probably the acetate, the more modern tape, but maybe you experienced something different. When
Phil, let me ask you, looking at this, does this tape go all the way around to the back side, or is it just on the front?
No, thankfully. So I have some more pictures to show here. So
okay.
Before this gets scrolled off, Morris says, in 1 week, JSA at CGC will tell me if my ASM 6 is actually signed by Steve Ditko. It would be the only Silver Age ASM signed by him in the census, is what you mean. If it's legit,
that would be amazing.
Wow, what a treasure that would be. Good luck with that. Let us know, please.
Very good luck. Yeah.
This is one of those things where it's so easy when you just see a scan, and this happens quite often in the please grade my section on the CGC, where people upload scans, and you can look at this and say, wow, look, this is this grade. But what you don't see is all these creases here, which definitely affects the technical grade, but you don't see from a Fernon scan. So these are,
you gotta have that. Yeah.
Oftentimes in illustrating kind of what is being done in total, because the scans can be a little deceiving sometimes. Not absolutely. So you can see here the tape, is very apparent on the front. On the back, you can see it stripped all along the spine there, but there's no more on the back cover edge, thankfully. And then to answer your question, Larry, so first order of business, I mean, really, it could be second. You're either going to start by dry cleaning it, or you can disassemble and then start dry cleaning. But at least the way that I work, I disassembled this, take the staples off. That's
how I do it.
For my little staple guides there, I put a little ASM 14 there, top bottom. Those are the staples and their proper orientations to when I'm going to reinsert them, I know which one is which. Very important. And then on the right there, you can see the cover open, and you can see, thankfully, there's no tape there. So the kid or whoever this was that put the tape on the book did it with the book. So sometimes you'll see people disassemble books to put tape and then reassemble the book. That can happen. But a lot of people over time, understandably, and we know this since we disassembling them, that's a barrier to entry. So oftentimes people are just putting the tape on there without disassembling it here, which is thankfully what happened here, and thankfully why there's no other tape on the inside of the cover too. It's just on the outside. But I would make the case, really, I would have preferred it to be on the inside spine here and on the inside, because you would expect some color loss here, especially being an early Marvel, and having the tape on the inside cover makes that a non-issue, because
mitigates that risk.
Yeah. And then this is just, I don't know if you can see it kind of clearly here, but this, it's not going to matter too much. But this was after I know some other people that do this that like to take a lot of pictures with like eraser shavings all over books. I don't generally do that. I just like to show the before and after it's been dry cleaned for the most part. So this is after the cover's been dry cleaned and it's ready to be submerged for the solvent bath to help loosen that tape that's on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And a nice little byproduct of the solvent bath that I do here. You can see the solvent that I used wasn't that dirty brownish yellow color. That is a byproduct of the solvent and helping. It's helping to loosen the tape, but it's also taking that. Unless I'm mistaken, I think it's the oxidized lignin that it's helping.
These are soluble byproducts of both oxidization and hydrolysis of lignin, cellulose, and hemicellulose. So all the three main components of the paper, all are breaking down over time, and they're all developing byproducts. Some of those byproducts are especially bad because they're acids, which then accelerate the additional breakdown by hydrolysis. So removing those in this way does several things. First, it removes some of the tanning, as you can see here, but also it increases the pH. So getting rid of some of those acids is beneficial to the longevity of the paper as well. So
nice.
Several good things happening here.
About pH, but that's good. And then also, this is one of those processes that, if done correctly, it's there's no residue that it was done at all. If done incorrectly, you can leave tide marks, you can pull color off, you can run into a lot of issues. So this is one of those things that it's a surgery. This is an operation that you're doing here. And then to that effect, one really nice thing about this case is that very oftentimes tape is put on for a reason. It's not just put on as a preventative. So one would expect oftentimes the reason they put the tape on the cover here is because there's tears along the right edge, there's splitting on the spine. Thankfully, in this case, there really wasn't anything. The biggest issue was one small tear just to the right of Hulk's head on that ad with some paper that was creased and folded over that I was actually able to very carefully fold back in its original orientation while scraping the adhesive from the tape off without removing that little piece, because it was torn and creased, and you're working in an area where it's only being held on by less than half of an inch. You have to be very careful.
Yeah. So it's prophylactic tape.
Yeah.
Phil, do you usually bathe the book before attempting a tape removal? So
yeah. So in my experience, I've never encountered it's always best to do it before, because the bath is helping to loosen it's helping to soften the adhesive so the carrier comes off easier, and then so the adhesive can be more easily scraped. I don't know what I'm sure there is an exact science to what the appropriate time is. In my experience, sometimes I'll do the baths for a couple hours. Sometimes I'll do a bath for 10 minutes. If I look at the tape and I'm like, this only needs enough just to get wet and it's fine. Sometimes I look and I'm like, there's no harm in me soaking this for 4 hours, because all it's doing is helping the solvent get into the paper and penetrate everywhere. And that's especially important if you have paper where there's tape on both sides, where sometimes the solvent is really only going to get in there once you remove the tape from one side. So
sure. So the carrier is the plastic part. There's the adhesive is chemically separate. In the manufacture of the tape, there's actually usually a primer between the two of them that holds them together. If you have a situation, which I think you just described here, where the solvent softened up the adhesive, allowed you to remove the carrier, and then you had to scrape the adhesive off, then that confirms that it's a modern tape, because the adhesive is actually not soluble in the solvent you're using. It just swells it essentially and makes it no longer super sticky. And the old adhesives are literally soluble, so they will literally dissolve in the solvent.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. So that's in practice how you know which kind of tape you have.
So, so as you can see too, after the removal,
Beautiful.
I mean, if you look at the before and after, which you'll see, there really was very little color loss here. And the only areas where there really was color loss, you can see there was abrasion under the tape in those areas already.
Sure.
So not to toot my own horn, but hey, this was a pretty well success all for all intents and purposes, knowing how this can come out sometimes.
Big time. And especially the fact that this tape is only just destroying the book over time. Even if you do whatever, let's just put a number on it and say you did 10% damage removing the tape. Okay. You ripped the Band-Aid off, you got 10% damage. If you leave it, you've got 100% damage in another 20, 30 years. So those are your choices. You can either, you're obviously not the one to put the tape on. Taking the tape off is not the part that does the damage. It's the person that put it on that did the damage. And you are minimizing the future damage or conserving the total amount of damage to be done by getting it off now. So if there is some amount of damage or loss during this process, to me, it's equity is created because it's a good exchange. You're taking a small amount of damage now to forego a large amount of damage in the future.
For me, it is unfortunate that it does almost always come down to a conversation with the client of, hey, this is the cost. If the numbers make sense on your end, I'm happy to do the work, because while I want to remove tape from every book, sometimes it just is something that just isn't cost effective, because it is also it's not dry cleaning. It's a process.
It's time consuming,
and it's a delicate process too. There's very much a learning curve to knowing how to what you can really get away with the paper without causing damage, because it's so easy to cause damage by doing it too.
A lot can go wrong. JCP, we've all had much worse results.
Oh my God, yes.
Ben wants to state unequivocally, Clay would be proud, Phil.
Clay would be proud.
And he spelled Phil correctly with 2 L's.
Oh, thanks. Hey, I don't ever hold that against anyone, because I spell my name oddly compared to how most people see Phil, and that's okay.
I'm with you, Loston. I really don't like tape on my books.
Yeah. You hear that, Clay? You hear that? It didn't work. I got the tape on. Nice try, Clay. Nice try. So,
do you want to talk about the solvent you're using, Phil?
I mean, there's enough that I can talk about specifically. I can just say it's solvent.
You got this right here. I'll say this: in our book, we go through all the solvents you could possibly use, which ones are preferred for which tapes, and the TLDR is Bestine works for most of them pretty darn well.
If you use the heptane, make sure you're well ventilated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't. So I mean, not in every instance, but in very many instances, I'm basically just using Bestine. So I mean, it's not like a really big secret. The real tough part is, do you have the hands to do it or not? Because that's I've helped guide some people, and then I've heard them later being like, yeah, I had this tray in my thing, and it was just, my parents could smell it, like it smelled weird, like you could, and it's like, yeah, because you need, like they were talking about using it without any precautions, so you need to definitely, it's not something where like, wow, this has like an interesting smell, I'm feeling kind of lightheaded. It's like, that's not good.
There are some solutions that work slightly better than Bestine for certain kinds of tape, and I've mixed some of them up, and I can confirm that they do work slightly better. Maybe they work like 10% better, and you've got to know a lot more chemistry. So at the end, start with Bestine and kind of experiment from there, I think.
Bestine, just be patient.
Yeah, Jason, thank you so much. Definitely highlight your question here. Phil, do you do another bath to remove any solvent you've used to dissolve the tape adhesive? I think I know the answer.
No.
One bath. I also just do the one, Jason, for what it's worth. Captain does too.
A part of it, I've found So I think part of it kind of depends. Sometimes, especially if I'm working interior pages and I'm using solvents, I'll just, if I don't need to soak the whole page first, I'll just remove the tape and then I'll give the page a bath, because really the bath's just helping to remove tide lines.
Well, for me, it's just getting rid of the solvent smell. Because
so
it
Larry,
does,
you mean there's an aqueous bath afterward?
yes, that's what we're talking about.
Oh, I think Jason was
no,
asking if
no.
there's a second solvent bath.
Oh, no. I do one bath. That's it.
One solvent bath,
One
Jason.
solvent bath, and
then-
I get everything all the tape off
Yep.
in that one bath, along with the adhesive, and then I do two aqueous baths to get rid of the smell.
Yeah, and Bestine is a very useful thing, and it's something that can also be used multiple times. And it is one of those things, when I first learned how to use it, in the videos I was watching, Bill Cyril, the grandfather of comic book restoration, talk about using Bestine, and he kind of went off to say how it'll hit a point where it just looks too yellow, and you know that it's not going to absorb anything anymore. It's actually gonna, in some cases, transfer that to the book, which there's no like, wow, this is just an infinite glitch where you can just keep using this Bestine. You cannot.
He was
do it.
also using it on the old tapes, Phil. So he was actually literally solubilizing the rubber.
Yeah, he was dissolving
literal rubber-based adhesive. On the new tapes, you actually can use it more. But then to the same point, as we talked about, you're solubilizing byproducts, nasty byproducts that you don't want. So just use fresh. Canada apparently doesn't sleep. You can't get bedtime in Canada because it's toxic. I feel bad for Gorilla Monkey and all of our Canadian friends.
No bedtime.
Meet me at the border. Bring cash.
Meet him at the border. He'll get you your bedtime.
Let's go back. Just to not get super off topic, but here's the nitty gritty before and after that you can see here. So that's
very nice.
Yeah, it came out nice, Phil.
Oh, you want to know what? Actually, this is not the full before and after. I'm sorry. This is simply after. The staples aren't reinserted here, so the book hasn't been pressed. I think I just did this just to show the tape being removed, and this is one of the weird photos that I had. But I think actually what I did was I grabbed the wrong photo. I had it, or maybe, it might not make too much of a difference anyway. Let's just say for what it's worth, that's the after, because there really wasn't too much of a difference other than it was being inserted. So that's the before and after. You can see the tape gone. You can see how the bath had that extra benefit of kind of brightening up and
look at the field, or like under the goblin's left armpit, which is supposed to be a blue cast to a cave, but on the left it's a yellow. It's like almost green because it's yellow plus blue.
It's got a turquoise tint to it.
Yeah, and then look on the right how much cleaner that is. I mean, it really looks a lot better.
I also want to note here you can look more, like you can see in the Green Goblin blurb on the left there, you can see the areas with the color loss. There was either already abrasions kind of there, just like at the top near Spidey's head. It's kind of subtle and harder to see in the scan, but I was more satisfied in the areas like on the right near the Hulk, and then in that green bar there where the top layer of the paper is already compromised. So removing the tape around that perimeter,
super difficult,
more color loss, and there really was not very much color loss there, which is
super difficult. If anybody asked me to work on this and asked me what I expected the outcome to be, I would have said paper loss.
Yeah, no,
to one degree or another, more than what you saw, certainly.
Yeah.
Brilliant work, Phil. Absolutely.
And it's nice to see like I saw one of the comments talk about the whole corner box, and I mean, you have that vertical line of the tape that messes with your eye when you go and see that box, and it doesn't look the whole top of the box looks faded and cloudy because of the tape. So now it's much more
Yeah,
pronounced.
it looks much nicer.
Absolutely. Lots of kudos in the chat from the professor and Gorilla Monkey and Pluck My Last Nerve and Loston and Ben Stewart. Ben, it's Bill Sorrell, William Sorrell. He's mentioned in, he trained Matt Nelson directly, also trained Kenny Sanderson. He's mentioned in Matt Nelson's book. He's also mentioned in our book here. In our upcoming book, we have a little segment on him as well. Thank you, Sales Boy. Keep it moist.
I'm not a doctor, but I'll take it.
You're a doctor now, man.
Hey, I mean,
super chat.
Phil, Uncle Phil, those are all like cultural, things. I'll ride those waves. Better than like Phil of the Future, that crappy TV show when I was in high school. Anyway, so here's the back cover. Much cleaner. It's always, these baths are always much more apparent here, but it is just. I find it so funny that half of my time when I'm cleaning books is devoted to looking at this guy at his desk or just some.
Oh God, I've seen him so many times.
You don't think about it when you're going to do this work, like, oh, all of the cool books I'm working on, all that. It's like, yeah, but there's a back cover to every one of them, and the image in the package is cool.
A lot of them.
There's story, but it's you got to look for it,
and you're going to spend more of the time on the back cover.
But damn, is this satisfying seeing
huge difference? Huge. I'm sure the owner is just thrilled with this outcome. Yeah. We need to clear this up for Jason. To be clear, you do an aqueous bath to weaken the tape, a solvent bath to remove it, and then another aqueous bath. The answer is no, just the solvent bath. That's Correct. It. Mm-hmm. For Phil's work here, especially on Silver Age, this is just one solvent bath. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, look, you'll know when you're doing work on these. Like, I've given books about a bath before to loosen it. Then as I'm loosening the tape, I have like an eyedropper and I'm constantly getting it wet as I'm, scraping the adhesive. But then once I'm all done, I look at it again and I'm like, even though it had the first bath, there's still some subtle tide lines. So I got to give it another bath to help remove the tide lines after. That's something that's a case-by-case basis that you see after working on enough books.
Yeah, but point being, none of those are aqueous baths.
No, none of it's always, I'm only doing solvent baths. That's all. Yep. That's all. So this is this was showing, the light photo here to kind of see all those creases that were taken out as well as the tape. So part of it was that tape when it was put on kind of stressed the paper and pulled it down there. You can see. Yeah, so now with the tape off, the paper is able to relax and go back in its original orientation once it's humidified and pressed. And then not a lot of glory there, but on the back cover too, it's a similar thing where there was some lessened quite a bit. And then the final end result is so satisfying getting a book like this back and opening up that cover after you've had a press, and that it doesn't feel newsstand fresh, but it's as close to that as it's gonna get again. And you see the splash page and everything's all nice and ready to go for grading. And on that note, some people probably saw my Instagram already, but people can guess what they think this book came back from, for a CGC grade. That's in the next slide.
I saw it, but I don't remember.
I do. I'll be quiet.
We'll just go here again just to kind of show. You got the image on the right there. That's the before and that's the after. So the book's got some abrasion. It's got tape staining. Clay's got his name still on there in pen, no less. If it was in pencil, I would have been able to remove it a little bit. And also to that point, I wasn't able to remove the 15 that's in pen, but he also wrote it in pencil first and then was like, oh, let me write it in pen, actually.
That was very thoughtful of him.
You can see just under that 15 that's not totally underneath it. You can see there's a trace. So the cover is attached here. That was another thing. Again, the tape was just preventative, so there's really no splitting. The cover is firmly attached at both staples.
Okay. Well, I think I like to just kind of intuit my way through these.
That's right, Ben. It's a 9.8. You're totally right.
I don't think it's lower than a 4. I'm trying to see if in my mind I could justify higher than a 4. And
I'm going to recuse myself because I know the answer.
I think it's tough to get higher than a 4, but I think
If I could just say one thing, Paul, before you make your guess.
Yeah.
There's a history of, well, at least me feeling like, damn, I feel like the book's undergraded after we show the reveal. And then also CGC just being real tough on stains. And this book's got a tape stain all along the spine, even though that tape's gone. So
yeah.
Be totally transparent here.
Yeah. But nevertheless, the accumulation of defects allowed in a 4. I feel like I just feel like it's a 4. I feel like lower than a 3.5 is a ripoff. Higher than a 4.5 is just too much of a gift to even hope for. So I'm going to be at a 4 plus minus half point.
Okay.
That's what but my base case is a 4 on this.
Everybody else in the audience is 3.5 to a 5.
All right, there's no 5.5s and there's no 2.5s, so that's good. At least we're in.
There's a 9.8 though, so
yeah. That's what I do. I get 9.8s for everyone. So that's what I told this client. I was like, I'm going to take this tape off. We're going to get you that 9.8, and he was like, "Oh, let's do it."
That's that other guy.
That's the kind of expectations I like to set up. So without further ado, hey,
3.
Yeah, it's a 3.
Come on.
You know the worst part?
That's a ripoff.
I made this slide and I thought it was 3.5. So yeah, you know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. The important thing here is that my client was actually thrilled. I think he thought it was going to be like a 2 before I did anything to it with the amount of tape and the creasing and the dirt and everything like that. And I agree. I think it probably would have been maybe a 2.5 if it was submitted as is before. Yeah. I think 3 here is a little unfair. I have to try to remain as impartial as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I think the fact that the cover is attached and
you have no spine split, you have no missing
major pieces missing.
You have small rips, small abrasions.
Yeah.
Like I said, I just don't see it. Let's see.
I
multiple tears to the spine. Okay, you got these tiny little tears, but they're not spine splits. They're going the other direction, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Multiple chip out of cover. Okay, chips.
Yeah, they're tiny. I agree with.
They're like 1/8 of an inch chips, right?
Well, there's some scuffs.
Now scuffs are different. I'm just on chips right now.
Okay.
We got tape pulls, and I think that's where these scuffs and tape pulls, we can put them in the same category, right?
Look over Green Goblin's body. You know, like that. There's things like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Up or you don't realize.
Writing in pen on cover.
It stands out.
Yeah. The writing, creases, sure. Tape residue, sure. I still think anything lower than a 3.5 is very harsh on this. It's just
I would personally grade.
But I'm not a pro.
At a 3.5.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Pluck my last nerve. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks for the super chat. The work was a 10, Phil.
Oh, thanks. I mean, I was going for the 9.8, but I'll take a 10. This is one of those things where I think it is grading subjective, and there's so much within our control. It's funny how when this was first done, I had less of an opinion than I do in this very moment, only because all I ever care about is my client happy? And this guy was super happy. He was happy with the cost, with the cost of the work and the way the grade came back. But it is a little disappointing, admittedly, hearing everyone talk about this here and then looking at it again for review and being like, man, this could have been at least a 3.5. I mean, damn, maybe a 4 is pushing, but how wasn't this a 3.5? So this goes to show sometimes it is what it is.
I will say, in terms of the subjectivity, right? It's like what constitutes a really bad defect? Scuffing on the Green Goblin is more important to somebody maybe than a 1-inch tear through the title, right? Now, me being more of like a structural guy, I don't like a tear where I have now like a loose tag essentially at the top of the book where reading it is a risk because it's going to increase that tear. The scuff where I still have some paper there, to me, less bothersome, right? But I could see them saying we have a certain standard and scuffs are at this level. I don't see 3 here, but again, I'm not a pro.
No, and I'm not trying to throw CGC under the bus, but I saw, and I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus because this book,
of course.
I mentioned I saw the work was incredible on it, but I've seen several books that were 9.8s recently that I'm looking. I'm like, these books are 9.2s or 9.4s at most, and I'm like, that's 9.8, and I'm like, so there's a reason why there's a 9.2, a 9.4, a 9.6, and a 9.8 because a 9.2 shouldn't be a 9.8. So in this case, I would say, in my experience right now, CGC is maybe past their point of being looser grading, and they're kind of back to being a little more strict on books. Because I had another big Golden Age book I removed restoration from. I was hoping would be a 2.5, and they hit it with a 2, and that was disappointing. More so than this, honestly. So
I've got one of those as well.
They're trying to reflect the marketplace and they're trying to reflect consumers' opinions. And I do think that grading standards generally overall have gotten tougher in the last 20 years, in part because of the existence of CGC and then bringing to light some of these defects and the true rarity of perfect books. So I think if we talk about it much longer, we would become the new CGC show, which I don't want us to be. So I think we should wrap it there. Because there's infinite ammunition to fund this conversation if we wanted to.
Oh yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah. Great. Is that your last slide, Phil?
No,
appreciate you putting that together for us. And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, great outcome.
Your client should be happy, and it's a beautiful book, and it's an important book, and it's well loved, and now it'll last. And
hey, and maybe at some point someone wants to resub it to CGC, and I've mentioned this before to some people, and they don't believe it, but you can make the argument that book there submitted to CGC 5 times. Not that you're going to do it. 2 of the times it comes back a 4, 1 time it comes back a 3.5, and 2 of the other times it comes back a 3. So it's like,
it's true.
There's that level.
We've all resub books and gotten a different grade, right?
Yeah.
So
all of us,
without any work, just resub the
exactly.
Books. And CGC even admits that this happens, right? So they do their best and they do a great job, frankly. But it's not perfect because it's humans, and none of us are perfect. Oh man, that I feel like we can just go out on that. We're all wonderful. We all do a great job. None of us are perfect. Thank you all for being here. We love to share this almost hour and a half with you on Sunday evenings. And
happy Memorial Weekend, everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your service if you did provide it. Yes.
Absolutely. And until next time, take care of one another.
See you, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in.